The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, washing the narrow streets of the city into rivers of mud and silence. In a forgotten corner of that city lived a boy named Ayaan. Ayaan was 10 years old, though the weight in his eyes made him look much older. Every morning before sunrise, he would tie a torn cloth around his face, pick up a crooked stick and walk toward the garbage dumps that stretched along the outskirts. That was his world. Piles of waste, buzzing flies and the constant smell of decay. But Ayaan was not like the others. Where people saw trash, he saw patterns. Where others saw useless scraps, he saw pieces of puzzles. His mother, Zainab, often watched him from the doorway of their broken shack. She was a frail woman, her hands rough from years of labor, her eyes tired but full of love. "Ayaan," she would say softly, "you don't have to think so much, just collect what you can and come back safely." Ayaan would smile, a small quiet smile. "Ami, everything has a reason, even this." He would lift a broken bottle or a rusted can, examining it as if it held secrets the world had forgotten. At night, while other children slept, Ayaan would sit under a flickering streetlight with the scraps he collected. Torn books, half-burnt notebooks, pages of old magazines. He couldn't afford school, but he taught himself. Slowly, patiently. Words became sentences. Sentences became ideas, and ideas became dreams. Then one day, everything changed. It started with a cough. A man in the neighborhood began coughing uncontrollably. Within days, others followed. Fever spread like fire. People who once filled the streets disappeared behind closed doors. Hospitals overflowed. The city that once roared with life fell into a strange, haunting silence. No one understood the illness. Doctors were confused. Scientists on television spoke in complicated terms. Even the richest parts of the city couldn't find a cure. And in the slums, people were dying. Zainab fell sick on the 7th day. Ayaan noticed it immediately. The way her breathing grew heavy, the way her hands trembled as she tried to cook. "Ami, sit down," he said, panic rising in his chest. "I'm fine," she whispered, forcing a smile. But her voice was weak. That night her fever burned like fire. Ayaan sat beside her, holding her hand, his small fingers trembling. For the first time in his life, he felt completely helpless. The next morning he ran to the government hospital. The scene there was chaos. People crying, stretchers lined up in corridors, doctors shouting instructions, the air thick with fear. Ayaan pushed his way through, trying to find someone, anyone who could help. "Please," he cried, grabbing a doctor's sleeve. "My mother, she's very sick." The doctor barely looked at him. "We don't have space. Go home. Keep her isolated." "Isolated?" Ayaan whispered. "But how do I save her?" The doctor had already moved on. Ayaan stood there, surrounded by noise, yet feeling completely alone. That was the moment something changed inside him. He didn't cry, he didn't scream. Instead, his mind began to race. That night, sitting beside his mother, he remembered the scraps of knowledge he had gathered over the years. Bits of science from torn textbooks, diagrams of cells, notes about diseases, herbal remedies mentioned in old magazines. It wasn't enough, but it was something. He stood up suddenly. "I won't let you die, Ammi," he whispered, his voice shaking but determined. The next morning, Ayaan didn't go to the garbage dump like usual. Instead, he went searching. He collected every piece of paper he could find related to medicine, biology, chemistry, even if it was half destroyed. He visited old junk shops begging for discarded books. Some people laughed at him. Some ignored him. A few gave him what they could. Days passed. Zainab's condition worsened. Her breathing became shallow. Her voice faded into silence. Ayaan barely slept. His eyes burned, his hands shook, but he kept working. He began experimenting in the only space he had, a small corner of their shack. He mixed crushed herbs he found near the drains. He boiled liquids in a dented tin pot. He tested combinations, remembering fragments of what he had read. Most of it failed. Some mixtures made no sense. Some were dangerous. But Ayaan didn't stop, because every time he looked at his mother, he saw time running out. One evening, while going through a stack of torn pages, he found something unusual, a partially burned page from an old scientific journal. Most of the text was gone, but a small diagram remained, showing how certain natural compounds could strengthen the body's immune response against unknown infections. Ayaan's heart began to beat faster. This could work," he whispered. He ran outside searching for the plants mentioned, or at least something similar. Hours later, covered in dirt and sweat, he returned. That night under the dim light he worked more carefully than ever before. He crushed, filtered, boiled and waited. The liquid in the pot slowly changed color. Ayaan stared at it, his breath held. "Please," he whispered, as if speaking to the universe itself. Outside the rain began to fall again. Inside time seemed to stop. He poured the mixture into a small cracked glass. His hands trembled as he turned toward his mother. She lay still, her breathing barely visible. Ayaan knelt beside her. "Ami," his voice broke. "You have to trust me." For a moment there was no response. Then slowly her eyes opened, faint, weak, but alive. Ayaan helped her sit up, supporting her fragile body. "This might help," he said, tears forming in his eyes. She looked at him, truly looked at him, as if seeing not just her son but something much greater. Without a word she nodded. Ayaan brought the glass to her lips. The moment hung in the air, and just as she was about to drink it, her hand trembled so violently that a few drops spilled onto the floor. Ayaan quickly steadied the glass, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break through his chest. "Slowly, Ami, slowly," he whispered, his voice shaking. Zainab looked at him with weak but trusting eyes, then slowly brought the glass to her lips again. This time she managed to take a small sip. The bitter taste made her flinch, but she didn't stop. With every ounce of strength she had left, she drank it. Ayaan watched every second, every breath, every tiny movement. Nothing happened, at least, not immediately. The silence in that small shack was heavier than anything Ayaan had ever felt. Outside, the rain continued to fall, tapping softly against the broken roof. Inside, time seemed frozen. "Ami?" Ayaan whispered. Zainab didn't respond. Her eyes slowly closed again, and her body slumped slightly. For a brief, terrifying moment, Ayaan thought, "No, no, no, no." He shook her gently. "Ami, please." But then, a faint breath. Then another. Ayaan froze. He leaned closer, his ear near her mouth, her breathing. It was still weak, but it was steady, different. Something had changed. Minutes passed like hours. Ayaan didn't move. He sat there holding her hand, afraid that even the smallest motion might break whatever fragile hope had just appeared. Then, slowly, her breathing deepened. The tension in her face eased. The burning heat of her skin began to cool. Ayaan's eyes widened. "It's working," he whispered, almost afraid to believe it. Tears rolled down his cheeks, but he didn't wipe them away. For the first time in days, hope didn't feel like a lie. Hours passed. The night grew darker, then slowly began to fade into morning. Ayaan hadn't slept. He hadn't moved. And then, "Ayaan." The voice was soft, weak, but clear. Ayaan's head snapped up. "Ami." Zainab's eyes were open, fully open. She looked confused at first, then slowly focused on him. "You didn't sleep?" Ayaan let out a broken laugh, half crying, half breathing again after what felt like forever. You're okay. Zainab tried to sit up, and though she was still weak, she was no longer struggling for breath. "Ayaan, what did you do?" she asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Ayaan looked at the empty glass beside him, then back at her. "I just tried on me." That moment changed everything. By afternoon, word had spread through the narrow streets. The boy, the garbage boy, his mother got better. At first people didn't believe it, but then they came, one by one, a man barely able to stand, a woman carrying her coughing child, an old man shaking with fever. They stood outside Ayaan's shack, their eyes filled with desperation. "Please," one of them said, "help us." Ayaan looked at them, then at his mother. Zainab, still weak but sitting upright, gave a small nod. Ayaan swallowed hard. "I don't know if it will work for everyone," he said honestly, "but I'll try." And so, he did. The small corner of his shack turned into something no one could have imagined. A place of hope. Ayaan worked non-stop. He collected more herbs, refined his process, adjusted the mixture. Each time he observed carefully what worked, what didn't. Some people improved, some took longer, a few didn't make it. And those losses broke Ayaan in ways no child should ever experience. One night after losing a patient, he sat outside alone, his hands covered in stains, his eyes empty. "I'm not enough," he whispered. Zainab slowly came and sat beside him. "You are doing what even the biggest people couldn't," she said gently. "But you are still human, Ayaan." Ayaan shook his head, tears falling again. "If I was smarter, faster, maybe I could save all of them." Zainab placed her weak hand on his head. "You're already saving more than anyone else." But the world beyond the slums had started to notice. News spread quickly. A mysterious recovery in the poorest part of the city. An unknown remedy showing unexpected results. At first scientists dismissed it. Impossible, they said. Unverified, they claimed. But then the numbers grew. More recoveries, more stories, more lives saved. And soon they had no choice but to pay attention. One morning, black cars entered the narrow, muddy streets, something that had never happened before. Men in clean suits stepped out, covering their noses from the smell, their polished shoes sinking slightly into the dirt. Ayaan was inside grinding herbs. When he heard the commotion, someone rushed in. "Ayaan, important people are here. They're asking for you." Ayaan froze. For a moment he looked at his hands, rough, dirty, trembling. Then he stood up. As he stepped outside, dozens of eyes turned toward him. Among them stood a man with glasses holding a file, his expression serious but curious. "You are Ayaan?" the man asked. Ayaan nodded slowly. The man looked around at the shack, the people, the conditions, then back at the boy. "We've heard you've been treating patients." Ayaan hesitated. "I'm just trying to help." The man stepped closer, lowering himself slightly to meet Ayaan at eye level. "Can you show us exactly what you're doing?" The air grew tense. The people around watched silently. Zainab stood in the doorway, her heart racing. Ayaan looked at the man, then at the crowd, then at his small, fragile world. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was something bigger, something the entire city, maybe even beyond, was waiting for. He took a deep breath, then slowly nodded. "Come inside," he said. And as they stepped into that tiny shack, a place built from scraps and survival, the men hesitated at the entrance for a brief moment, as if unsure whether to step into a space so small, so fragile, so far removed from their world of laboratories and polished floors. But then, one by one, they entered. The air inside was thick, not just with the smell of herbs and boiling mixtures, but with effort, desperation, and something else. Something they couldn't quite name yet. The man with glasses looked around carefully. His eyes scanned everything: the cracked pot, the improvised filters made from cloth, the piles of torn papers filled with handwritten notes. "You did all this?" he asked quietly. Ayaan nodded. "I didn't have proper things," he said, his voice calm but tired, "so I used what I could find." Another man, older with a stern expression, stepped forward. "Do you even understand what you're doing? This is not a game. People's lives are at stake." Ayaan met his gaze without fear. "I know," he said. The room fell silent. There was no arrogance in his voice, no pride, just a simple, heavy truth. The man with glasses raised his hand slightly, signaling the others to stay quiet. "Show us," he said gently. Ayaan turned toward his small workspace. His hands moved slowly at first, then with growing confidence, as if this was the only place in the world where he truly belonged. He picked up dried leaves. "These I found near the drainage canals," he explained. "At first I thought they were useless. But when I read about certain natural compounds, I realized they might help the body fight infections." He crushed them carefully. "I tested many combinations," he continued. "Most failed." His voice paused slightly. "Some made people worse." The men exchanged glances. Ayaan didn't look at them. "But then I found a balance," he said, adding another ingredient, "not to kill the disease directly, but to help the body fight it." The man with glasses leaned closer. "You're saying it strengthens the immune response?" Ayaan nodded. "I didn't know the exact words," he admitted, "but yes." The older man frowned. "This is all theory. Where is your proof?" Ayaan turned toward the door. Outside, dozens of people stood waiting, some weak, some recovering, some alive because of him. "That's my proof," he said softly. The room fell into a deeper silence. The man with glasses slowly removed his own glasses, wiping them as if trying to clear not just the lenses but his thoughts. "What's your name again?" he asked. "Ayaan." The man nodded. "Ayaan, I am Dr. Rahman." Ayaan didn't react much to the title, but the others did. A whisper spread outside. "Dr. Rahman, the scientist from the city? He's one of the top researchers." Dr. Rahman looked back at Ayaan, studying him more carefully now. Not as a child, not as a poor boy, but as something else entirely. "How did you learn all this?" he asked. Ayaan pointed to the stack of torn papers. "From there." Dr. Rahman walked over, picking up a page. It was half burned, the text incomplete, but filled with Ayaan's small handwriting, notes, corrections, ideas. He flipped through more pages. Each one showed the same thing: observation, correction, understanding. This wasn't luck, this was thinking, deep thinking. Dr. Rahman let out a slow breath. "Do you realize," he said quietly, "that teams of scientists with full laboratories have not been able to do what you've done here?" Ayaan shook his head slightly. "I just wanted to save my mother." The simplicity of that answer hit harder than anything else. For a moment no one spoke, then suddenly, "Doctor!" a voice shouted from outside. "He's getting worse." Everyone turned. 2 men rushed in carrying a young boy whose body was burning with fever, his breathing erratic. "Please, help him!" the boy's father cried. Ayaan didn't hesitate. "Lay him here," he said, clearing space. Dr. Rahman watched closely. "This is important," he told the others. "We observe everything." Ayaan quickly prepared the mixture, but this time his hands were trembling, not from fear of failure, but from the weight of being watched. Dozens of eyes, scientists, people, hope, pressure. He paused for a second. Zainab, standing near the wall, spoke softly. Ayaan, don't look at them. He turned toward her. Look at the child, she said. Ayaan took a breath, then nodded. Everything else faded away. The people, the scientists, the noise. All that remained was the boy in front of him. Ayaan worked quickly, carefully, just like before. No rush, no panic, just focus. He finished the mixture and gently lifted the boy's head. It might be bitter, he said softly, even though the child was barely conscious. He gave him the medicine, then they waited. Seconds felt like minutes, minutes felt like hours. Dr. Rahman checked the boy's pulse, his breathing, his temperature. At first, nothing changed. The older scientist crossed his arms. This proves nothing. But then, wait, Dr. Rahman said suddenly. Everyone leaned closer. The boy's breathing, it had shifted, slightly but noticeably. It's stabilizing, Dr. Rahman whispered. The father fell to his knees. Ya Allah, please. Ayaan didn't move, he just watched carefully. The boy's body slowly relaxed. His tight, painful breaths began to ease. Sweat formed on his forehead, not from fever alone but from the body fighting back. Dr. Rahman looked at Ayaan. His expression had changed completely. This, he said quietly, almost to himself, this is not an accident. The older scientist stepped closer, his skepticism fading into something else. Do it again, he said. We need to document everything. Ayaan nodded, and in that small shack surrounded by broken walls and fragile hope, a shift began, not just in the room, but in the minds of those who had once believed that knowledge only lived in big buildings, expensive labs, and powerful institutions, because right in front of them stood a boy who had nothing, yet was changing everything. Outside, the crowd grew larger, word spread faster than ever. The scientists are here, they're learning from him. People are getting better, and inside, Ayaan kept working, not for recognition, not for fame, but for every breath that could still be saved. And as the sun began to set, casting a soft orange glow through the cracks of the shack, Dr. Rahman quietly stepped aside, watching Ayaan from a distance. There was something in his eyes now, not doubt, not curiosity, but realization. A realization that this moment, this boy, this place, the orange glow of the setting sun slowly faded, replaced by the dim blue of approaching night. Yet inside that fragile shack, no one noticed the passing of time, because something extraordinary was unfolding. Dr. Rahman stood quietly, his eyes fixed on Ayaan, not as a scientist observing a subject, but as a man witnessing a truth he could no longer deny. Hours passed, more patients came, more treatments were given, and slowly, steadily, more people began to stabilize. Not all at once, not like a miracle that changes everything in a single moment, but like hope returning breath by breath. At one point, Dr. Rahman stepped outside. The crowd parted slightly, their eyes filled with silent questions. He looked at them, people who had nothing yet had placed their entire faith in a child. Then he turned back toward the shack, toward Ayaan, and something inside him shifted. He walked back in with a new kind of urgency. Ayaan, he said. Ayaan looked up, exhausted but alert. Yes. Dr. Rahman took a deep breath. We need to take this further. Ayaan frowned slightly. Further? Yes, Dr. Rahman said. What you've discovered, it cannot stay here, not in one place, not with limited resources. There are thousands, maybe millions, who need this. Ayaan's hands tightened slightly. I don't care about millions, he said quietly. I care about the people here. Dr. Rahman nodded. And that's exactly why we must act, he replied. Because what you did for them can be done for others too. Ayaan looked around at the faces he knew, the streets that had shaped him, the place where he had fought and learned and survived. I don't want them to take it away, he said softly. Zainab stepped forward. No one is taking anything away, she said gently. They're helping you give it to the world. Ayaan looked at her, her strength, her calm, her belief in him. It gave him something he didn't even realize he needed, permission. He turned back to Dr. Rahman. What do we do? That night marked the beginning of a journey no one could have predicted. Within days, a temporary medical camp was set up right there in the slum. Not to replace Ayaan, but to learn from him. Doctors came. Researchers came. Even those who once dismissed the idea came quietly, with open eyes. Ayaan stood among them, still barefoot, still wearing the same worn clothes, yet now guiding conversations that once felt out of reach. He explained what he knew, admitted what he didn't, and most importantly, he kept learning. The mixture he created was refined, tested properly, understood deeply, and what they discovered shocked everyone. The compounds Ayaan had combined worked in a way no one had expected, not by directly destroying the illness, but by awakening the body's own ability to fight. It wasn't just treatment, it was resilience. Weeks later, the medicine began reaching hospitals. First in the city, then beyond. Recovery rates increased. Fear began to fade. The same news channels that once spoke in confusion now spoke with awe. A breakthrough from the most unexpected place. A young boy changes the course of a deadly illness. But Ayaan didn't watch any of it. He stayed where he always had been, helping, learning, growing. One evening, as the chaos slowly began to settle, Dr. Rahman approached him again. This time there was no distance between them, just respect. "Ayaan," he said, holding out a folder. Ayaan looked at it. "What is this?" "An offer," Dr. Rahman replied. "Education, proper training, a chance to become everything you're capable of becoming." Ayaan didn't take it immediately. Instead he looked around, at the children playing in the dirt, at the people who were now smiling again, at his mother, standing stronger than before. "Will I have to leave this place?" he asked. Dr. Rahman paused. "Not forever," he said honestly. "But to grow, sometimes you have to step beyond where you started." Ayaan stayed silent for a long moment. Then finally, he took the folder, but he didn't open it. "Not yet." "I'll go," he said, "but I'll come back." Zainab smiled softly. "I know you will." Years passed. The city changed. The world moved forward. But some stories never fade. Ayaan grew. He studied. He entered places that once would have turned him away without a second glance. And every time someone asked him where he came from, he told them the truth. Not with shame, but with pride. Because he never forgot the smell of those streets, the nights under broken lights, the moments when he had nothing, but refused to give up. And one day, he returned, not as a boy who searched through garbage, but as the man who had once found hope where no one else looked. The slum was still there, but something was different. A small clinic stood at the corner, simple, but strong. Above its door, a name was written, not in gold, not in shining lights, but in something far more powerful. Ayaan Health Center. Children ran past it, laughing, living. Zainab stood at the entrance, older now, but her eyes still carried that same quiet strength. And as Ayaan walked toward her, he wasn't a hero, he wasn't a miracle, he was still that same boy, who once sat under a broken light, and refused to let the darkness win. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the disease, or the medicine, or the scientists who were left in awe. It was about something far deeper. The truth that brilliance is not born in comfort, that knowledge is not owned by the powerful, and that sometimes the smallest hands carry the greatest answers. And as the sun slowly set behind the city once again, Ayaan looked around at everything that had changed, and everything that hadn't, then quietly whispered, "We were never helpless. We just needed someone to believe we weren't."